Hello everybody, welcome back to another review. Today I will be reviewing the GRC Jumping Raceway playset that just came out from Pixar's Cars. So this is a brand new playset that was just released like a few days ago. I'm reviewing this a few days after I got it, although I haven't opened yet because I've just been super busy. I got it at Amazon. It cost, if I remember correctly, $49.97, not including tax. So let's get right into this. So to start off, this is part of the GRC, or Global Racers Cup, which is this new expanded universe line that Mattel is doing for the Pixar Cars movies. Although, unlike most extended universes, it's actually part of the main line, which means you could walk into a Target and these cars will cost the exact same as a regular car in like any one from the three movies, or Cars on the Road, or Tokyo Mater. So what this GRC line is it's basically a bunch of the racers in Cars 2, plus Cruz and Storm from Cars 3, and they're in these new liveries for this thing called the GRC. So we don't know anything about what this GRC is. I'm assuming there won't be any short films to go with it. It'll just be, at the most, a storybook and toys and some Photoshop renders that they made on top of pre-existing character art. So looking, like Sandra looking at McQueen right here, this is obviously actually one of his promotional renders that they made for Cars 2, but they photoshopped this GRC graphics all over the World Grand Prix graphics. Speaking of photoshopped, I will say that these eyes right there in the stock image are actually a really, really bad Photoshop job. It just looks off. And it is interesting, McQueen's actually going back to his Cars 2 model. And this playset does include two plastic vehicles of both GRC McQueen and GRC Francesco. So actually the GRC McQueen and GRC Francesco, they are getting diecast metal releases, but those actually haven't been released yet. But I will do comparisons to their World Grand Prix counterparts in this video though. So also taking a look more at the package, you can see that there's this nice loop that goes through the Lightyear tire, jumps over there, and has the same wind-up kid-powered booster that they used to propel the cars that they also used in the Piston Cup Action Speedway that came out last year, and I also reviewed that. I'll put a link to that in the description and in the car suggestion top right-hand corner. That was also a great playset. I would definitely recommend checking out that one out as well. And it is still available at Target, Amazon, and Walmart. It's actually dropped a few dollars since I reviewed it. So if you don't have it, I'd recommend it. Hopefully this one will be just as good as better. I'll definitely say later in the review, after I've actually checked this one out of the box, which one I like better. So interestingly, you could actually see pit crew member Mater from Cars 2 right there. So that's Racing Mater with headset, which is super interesting because that has not actually been made in years. It's not even part of this year's diecast lineup. It hasn't been in I don't even know how many years. It actually wasn't a 5-pack a couple of years ago, but I don't even remember the last time it was in the singles line. I want to say before even Cars 3 was out. So that's super interesting that that made the cut for the package. We also got our first look at GRC Cruz Ramirez. Well, not really first look because she was on the poster, but she is also not out either. And you also could see Corey Turbowitz, who is one of the RSN announcers from the first movie, who did not appear in either of the sequels. On the side, you could see a graphic showing McQueen jumping over as Francesco zooms by, and another graphic on the bottom showing how the booster works. Interestingly, they're actually even going back to the font that they used to use in the Cars 2 merchandise back in the day, which is a font called Ethnocentric, which is a pretty neat font. It's Cars 2, they only really use in Cars 2 merchandise. More generic fonts and Cars 1, Cars 3, Cars on the Road, everything else. So without further ado, let's get into this and check it out. And before I forget to point it out, I mean, I'll remember later, but before the opening the box damages this image right here, you could actually show this connects to the other Cars playsets they've done in the past. So you could see some of the Cars on the Road playsets. You could see the Frank Escape Stunt Race playset, which I also reviewed pretty recently back in January. You could also check that out, my review of that, in the description and card suggestion. And then there's some other playsets I haven't reviewed on here from the Cars on the Road days, like This is the Radiator Springs race. I think it was called Red's Fire Station, the Car Wash, and Dino Park. Getting back into opening up this thing. Unfortunately, as usual for these playsets, there are a ton of stickers. Personally, I hate these. I get why they do. It's just so much easier for them to manufacture with the stickers rather than having to print it on themselves, but it is so annoying. I have a couple of playsets where stickers are a little wrinkled or misaligned because of just not putting them on too well exactly. It's just super tedious and kind of annoying. The instruction manual, though, it is in color, which is good. They usually do that with the more premium playsets. This would be one of the more premium ones, whereas the ones that are like 20 bucks or less, like the Fire Station or Dino Park, those are just black and white. This also seems like it's kind of like on a little bit of a thicker paper than usual. Those ones a little bit shinier. Usually just regular paper. This one feels a little thicker and shinier. I don't know why. I don't know why it's a different type of paper than usual. But it does give it a more premium feel, though. So the first step is to put all the stickers on. I'm going to do that off camera. So now I have all the stickers labeled. Now I have all the stickers placed onto the track pieces. So let's get into actually setting this thing up. Before I do that, though, I do want to talk quickly about a couple of the graphics. So for one, what's neat about this is they actually took some screenshots from the Tokyo race in Cars 2. But just like on the package, they actually photoshopped GRC graphics onto McQueen and Francesco, which is pretty cool that they did that. And they did do a pretty good job at photoshopping. I will say that for sure. It probably looks better in person than on camera, though. Although what is odd is that they're showing a track that's pretty clearly in Tokyo. Well, at least you've seen the movie, you know it's Tokyo. If you haven't seen the movie, it definitely doesn't look like Radiator Springs. I'm not sure from these shots if it looks like Tokyo to someone who's never seen the movie, though. Which is pretty odd because if we go back to the package, and also the package of the single, since those were released on Walmart and wherever, like it's pretty clear that they're saying it's happened in Radiator Springs. I mean, technically there's no shorts or anything, but the implication from the package design is that it's taking place in Radiator Springs. Although I don't know if we're getting a book or anything to back that up. But I assume if it was taking place in Tokyo, they already have renders that they made for Cars 2 and Tokyo Mater that they would just use instead for the background. And then the other neat thing about the GRC is that if you take a look at the logo, so like this is one version of the logo. This is another version of its logo. And here is their logo on the plastic trophy. So what's pretty neat about this logo is that on one half of the logo, you actually have half the World Grand Prix logo, and then the other half, you have a checkered flag, which I think is a really neat way of blending the logos of the World Grand Prix and the Piston Cup, which is pretty interesting as well, because like most of the racers in here are World Grand Prix racers. You have two that are exclusively Piston Cup, and then you have McQueen, who was both World Grand Prix and Piston Cup. But it is a neat way of blending the logos, I will say. And it's also an interesting thing that they're actually going back to Cars 2, because every expanded universe line since Cars 3 came out has been using Cars 3 characters. So the fact that returning to Cars 2 is, and also throwing a couple of Cars 3 characters into that never even interacted with Cars 2 characters outside McQueen and Mater is interesting to say the least. But again, let's get back into setting this thing up. The first thing you do is you take this piece, and this piece will just go, will click in pretty easily like that. You want to hear a click. You'll know when you, so you'll know that it's in when it has clicked, and you'll probably want to hear about 4 clicks. Just check to make sure that it's secure. So we can put that to the side for now. The next part is to take this piece. These are actually a few track pieces that didn't require any stickers. And actually going back to this one, so one thing that you'll notice is that this piece, which is the piece with the launcher, is actually completely identical, like 100% identical to what they used for the launcher on the Piston Cup Action Speedway. The only difference is that they changed the color from gray to blue. And what is nice is they did add some stickers to put in the clear part, which does make it a bit nicer. And obviously they did change up the sticker that we put in the center. So we have the Piston Cup logo versus the GRC logo. And the GRC logo is also better for our non-English speakers because it doesn't have any text in it. But literally, they couldn't even be bothered to remove the Piston Cup text and replace it with GRC text, or just not have any text there at all, or even just remove it and have a sticker that goes there. Wow, Mattel. That's lazy. I mean, it's a functional piece, but at the very least, make sure you're using the correct graphics. And it works the exact same way too. I am curious if you put this on here, it would probably still work fine, I'm sure. Yep, sure enough, it works. So yeah, they're completely identical. They're even interchangeable. I'm sure you could even put this one on the Piston Cup Action Speedway and it will work. Although I don't have the Action Speedway assembled right now, so I'm not going to do that myself. But if the Action Speedway works in here, I have no question this one's going to work in the Action Speedway too. So for this piece right here, we're talking about this piece, you'll want to connect the H connector. So it has letters on the bottom. So you'll want to connect the H connector. That will go in right there. Once it's in, it makes a loud clicking sound. If you do want to disconnect it when you're disassembling or you connect something in the wrong place, it does come back pretty easily. And just snaps right back in. Nice and easy. I do like how the track pieces, they use different shades of blue as well. Blue is actually my favorite color. So it's pretty neat that it's all different shades of blue, like the GRC logo, and like, the Piston Cup Action Speedway is just like generic, like gray speedway design track. So over here, you'll want the F pieces to snap in, and you have the G pieces right there. If you saw this white bag that I took out of the box earlier, this is just what's in it, just some support pieces. And same thing with the Piston Cup Action Speedway, that's the thing that puts you onto the trophy stand. The F piece is actually on the light blue one. So like I was saying about the colors, it's pretty neat to have different shades of blue because usually tracks are always the same color, and usually that's just a kind of a boring gray. And obviously gray is realistic, but it's just kind of a boring color. So I do like having my favorite color being, the two shades are being the track color. Definitely put some more color variety in. Because there aren't a lot of blue sets. So from there, you would then take this piece right here with the half a tire, and you'll plug that in facing this way on here. That one didn't really make a click sound, but it feels secure. So this is actually, it looks like it just sits up like that, and if a car lands it, it'll like go down. But it's also like this, you could have the cars, if you don't want it to jump, you don't have to, and they could still go through easily. And then you have this clear piece, which is another example of why stickers suck. There's a couple of them in this one. Even though I've done so many sets, this might honestly actually be the worst one in terms of stickers for me personally. You know, everyone has one of those where the stickers are just pretty off, I'm sure. So that will hopefully keep the cars from flying off the track when they do the jump, that clear piece. So then after that, we'll take those supports that I was talking about from the white bag, and they will go into the side in here, just like on the Piston Cup Action Speedway, where part of it was elevated. So there are different marks on them. So you have this one, which is letter U. It says it right there. This one is letter S. This one is letter T. The T is the tallest one. And R is the shortest one. S and U are in the middle. So you have the U one, which goes... So the U piece, it goes on this corner right here with the dark blue. It goes on the piece with the letter U. It also says it right. It also has letter U right there as well. So you could use that as a guide. Okay, for some reason that was just a bit awkward to push in. So the way you want to put it in, there's this like line, and there's like this line that extrudes down the center. You'll want to match that up with this piece that extrudes out right here. So moving on to T, so T goes over here. This is the tallest part. Hopefully this one's easier. So you see this line that extrudes out a little bit. You want to line it up here. These are just super awkward for some reason. It could be that I'm just trying to do it on camera, which is a little more awkward because the way I'm in relation to the camera, it's like a little bit awkward, I guess. But still, these aren't exactly the easiest, relatively speaking. I mean, they're not hard, but they're a bit more complicated than some of the other pieces in this track. The S piece will go right in. So the S piece will go right here as well. And last but not least, we have the R piece, which actually doesn't even go in this piece at all. It actually goes underneath the trophy stand right here. And this is the only one that does not have a line that extrudes out in the center. It doesn't matter which way you put it in, I don't think. And that snapped in nice and easily. Probably actually the easiest one of the four. So the next step is you take this RSN booth I was talking about, the RSN/picker booth, and that will connect onto this piece with the ramp just on the side, like that. I am doing this in an area that's a little less spacious than when I did the Piston Cup Action Speedway. When I did the Piston Cup Action Speedway, I did that on the other side of the room where there's a ton of space. Right now, that space is filled with some other stuff, so I'm doing it here. But for that reason, and because I now have a nice backdrop of Pixar art of books that I now use in the background for all my videos when I can. And I do have Cars 3 towards the center. I'm missing a bunch of the books still, but they are great. I do have the Inside Out 2 book, but I'm not going to touch them until I see the movie because there's spoilers in them. And I am looking forward to that movie, even though it's a bit off topic from Cars. This piece that has letter A, that goes right there. And then this piece will snap in where we have the letter B, which is right there. So this is the one that leads into the ramp. I believe in the box it says this is about 40 feet long, so it's actually the same length as Piston Cup Action Speedway. They're both 40-foot long tracks, which is pretty neat. So the next step, we will take this piece. So just like on the Piston Cup Action Speedway, you will just push that into here, make a loud click sound so you know it's in securely. That will be what pushes the racers onto the trophy stand. Well, this one, they just drive on. Whereas Piston Cup Action Speedway, they actually jumped on, and a lot of times they crash in that jump. This time they won't crash, but I will say that the jump, not having the jump, it might not be as fun, but we do have the jump there instead. So I guess that makes up for it. And also in the Piston Cup Action Speedway, we actually use the jumbo box in the center of the motor speedway, the south, to turn this the divider. So the next step is we take this piece where we have letter J right there. So that will click in right there. So the next thing is we take these two pieces, which are some of the last track pieces that we have. We connect them at the letter L. And then we take this piece, so you see this connector right here. This is what will connect it to the other Cars tracks that have been released the past couple of years. So the tracks before Cars on the Road came out, those use a different type of connector. They're not compatible with these. But everything Cars on the Road branded and anything released in 2023 and 2024, so Piston Cup Action Speedway, Frank Escape Stunt Race, Glow Racers, they're all compatible with these. So you could just connect each one of these rows on this connector and this piece right here. And that will just snap right in here. Although that's actually, just like in the Action Speedway, it's only literally one piece in the set that even connects it to everything else. Everything else is its own thing and doesn't actually connect to anything else. So when we're done with that, we then take the connector letter K and we will put that in right here. And we have connector N right here, which goes right there. So we have a nice overpass as well, which is pretty neat. And the last step is, I believe this is the last step. We connect this over here, and this just goes in nice and easy like that. So that's the track top. It's a pretty interesting design. It's definitely not your standard speedway, that's for sure. It's not even a figure eight either. It's like you have a 360 turn at the end like you do at any speedway, but then it goes straight, you jump, you make a full 360, and then you have the winner circle, and then you go over where you started. And so it's a pretty neat track. It's not your standard speedway, not an oval, not a 360. It's a pretty neat design that I can't say I've seen before. As I promised at the start of the video, I will now discuss what the actual GRC cars here look like. So here we have GRC Lightning McQueen. I do like his expression, for sure. It's a neat expression. Probably, I don't think I've seen this on McQueen before, where the mouth is closed, but in like a determined smile. I think the eyes, it looks a little bit weird. This is actually the same expression I thought just looked super photoshopped on the package image. But I do really like the mouth. This is a really nice graphic of the lightning bolts being white with the dark blue and light blue outlines. That's definitely not a lightning bolt that they've used before. And it's really interesting how the lightning bolt actually starts on one side of him on the back and goes across the roof of the car and ends actually on the hood. And then the other side of him has the more traditional lightning bolt that just goes along the side and just ends at the end. I think that's actually really cool. They've never done a lightning McQueen like that, to my knowledge. And then the side is interesting because you don't even have a 95. It's just a huge GRC logo. And then over here next to the tire, it's pretty hard to see because the plastic decals, they didn't come out too great. But it's like the RST and Light McQueen from the Tales from Radiator Springs and the truck back in the days between Cars 2 and Cars 3. It's not actually Piston Cup sponsors over here. It's like the Radiator Springs businesses. Like you could see Rusty's, you could see Cozy Cone. There's a couple of others that are just, you can't even make them out. It's pretty neat that they use like Radiator Springs businesses again. They have not done that in a while. So comparing him to Lightning McQueen Racing Wheels or World Grand Prix McQueen, what's really weird about this one is that when he was released in the Cars 2 line in 2011, they called him McQueen with Racing Wheels. Then in 2014, they changed it to WGP McQueen, WGP standing for World Grand Prix, of course. And then after Cars 3, they've gone back to calling him Lightning McQueen with Racing Wheels. It makes no sense, but especially unless they haven't even done the party wheels and travel wheels since 2011. But going back to the comparison to the GRC, again, it is a completely different expression. The new one, at least on the plastic one, I hope they do use an expression like this on the metal one too, which again, it's not out yet. I do like this expression, it's a bit more determined, whereas this one looks a bit happier. And again, you just can't even compare the hoods because they are just so different. You have one that's just a GRC logo and is completely black. I don't think there's any other McQueens that are in racing liveries with black hoods, and part of the lightning bolt that's going across diagonally, just ending on there. Whereas this one, you have the Hudson Horn and Piston Cup, which isn't even mentioned in Cars 3 or Cars on the Road. And then this side, the flame rather, the lightning bolt, it's more like the Cars 1 lightning bolt, where it just goes and it kind of ends at the end. Although in the Cars 1 McQueen, there is a little bit of red at the end of it, whereas this one just goes right to the edge of the side of the car. Whereas the Cars 2 one, which they also use for Cars 3, is a lightning bolt that turns into a flame at the end. And this one, it was weird, is that the GRC McQueen has the 95 on the left side of the car, but no mention of being 95 on the right side, which is pretty weird. And a neat similarity is that they do actually have the names of the race and the spoilers for both the GRC and World Grand Prix McQueens. So you can see the GRC logo here and the World Grand Prix logo here. And McQueen actually doesn't have any labels on his tires. I'm assuming that's just because he's a cheap plastic one. I'm assuming he will say Lightyear on the middle one whenever that comes out. And then McQueen's Cars 2 base, I have no idea why, but the base of the Cars 2 World Grand Prix McQueens, they like never had anything. Whereas the Cars 1 and Cars 3 McQueens, as well as the Hudson Horn and Piston Cup McQueen from Cars 2, those are always super detailed. This one, it's like, it more or less looks the same because there's so little on it. And this is a newer Lightning McQueen racing wheels made in Thailand, so because of that, it also has the holes in the base in the front and back, which are used so that the Mater Robusto Tow is actually able to tow McQueen, even though we never see World Grand Prix McQueen getting towed by Mater in the movies. But it's still a neat feature for kids if they want to have Mater towing McQueen around, and this is the McQueen that they have access to. Or if they just want to use their imagination and say there's something happened in Cars 2 that didn't happen in the movie. Or after Cars 2. Moving on to Francesco. Francesco has a completely different livery than what he had in Cars 2. So it's using the same color scheme of red, white, and green, which are the colors of the Italian flag, but adding a lot of black into it as well, since black, as well as the two shades of blue, are like the theme colors of the GRC. So it is pretty neat how on Francesco, they have the green, white, and red being in just stripes with black border between each one, so which more resembles the Italian flag. Whereas Cars 2 Francesco, it uses the same colors as the Italian flag, but it's not really themed to the flag. I mean, you do have the flag right here, which actually is still right here, and he's actually still is number 1 on the hood. But you wouldn't tell that this is an Italian flag by looking at it. Whereas this, you can kind of see it. And you could also see that he's number 1 over here. What's pretty neat about this one, actually, is that it looks like they just took the World Grand Prix graphic of the number 1 and just stuck a GRC logo on it. Or actually, they didn't even have the number 1 over here on Cars 2 Francesco. Instead, they had it over here. So it looks like the way they did the graphics with the numbers in Cars 2 was they would have a number in a circle. That circle will be on top of the country's flag. And then on top of the flag will be the World Grand Prix logo. And the flag was cropped to be like a kind of like a semicircle, though slightly elongated. So basically over here they did something very similar. They took the number, put it in the circle, and then stuck the GRC logo on top. But there's nothing around the circle though. And just like McQueen, there's no text on his tires. It should say Rotelli tires, Pasta Potenza. So I'm assuming it's just they're cheap on the plastic ones. I'm assuming you'll say it on the metal ones. Although it's also interesting is that on Cars 2 Francesco, all of Francesco's tires were red, whereas on this Francesco, the tires actually match the part of his chassis, the color of each part of his chassis. So the front tires are red because he's red over here, and his back tires are green because he's green back here. So now let's check out how this playset actually works. I am not going to be using the metal cars for this. I'm going to be using the plastic ones because you can use the metal cars in these, but I don't trust it. So the way this playset works is pretty straightforward. So basically, to start up the booster that you use to push the cars, you will want to turn this, and it will make this really loud sound. So you want to turn until you start reaching some resistance, at which point it becomes a bit harder to turn and it sounds a little bit different. So then once you have turned it, essentially what that does, it stores up a bunch of potential energy that's then used to push the car. So you put the car on the track and it shoots off like that. And then you could have it jump by just pushing that up. And you could push it back down by just pushing that the other way, and then between that to the winner circle by just turning that. And of course, you could have multiple cars on the track simultaneously as well. So when you have it down, when there's multiple cars on the track, there is absolutely the potential for a collision right there. And I'll probably wind this up because after so many laps, it does start to die down a bit. At which point the cars won't even have enough energy to make it up the hill that the ramp is on. And that was definitely a nice collision that I got there. So this time I'll show it off with the ramp going up, so they'll jump. So when this happens, they won't collide. Instead, they could potentially jump right over. There could potentially one car jumping right on top of the other, literally. I did grab two other plastic vehicles. So here we have Glow Racers Cruz Ramirez and Glow Racers Jackson Storm. So we'll check them out in the Speedway too, see how they work. Definitely works with them as well. The only complaint that I have is that I do wish that there was a way to actually know when the power booster is about to run out of power, so you could like activate this. I guess trial and error, you eventually figure out how long you'll get. Like, it would be cool to actually know how much time you have. So one thing that I did notice is that, at least with the plastic cars, I don't know if it'd be the same with the metal cars, because like I was saying earlier, I'm not even going to try metal cars in these tracks. I don't trust, I'm sure they're fine in terms of actually playing, but like, I don't want the cars to get chipped, because then it looks bad on display, because I do have concerns that these tracks could chip it. Like this thing could potentially chip a metal car, or if they crash into each other, that could absolutely chip them. So that's why I won't use metal cars in these, but with plastic cars, they do work great. Although the one issue I have is with this is I noticed that Francesco is much faster than McQueen. That's really the only negative I'd say. It's just the way that the cars are designed. It used one. It's probably because Francesco, I'd imagine, is a bit lighter than McQueen. If you use cars that were similar in shape and size, they probably wouldn't have that issue. And while I'm thinking of it, the only other negative that I'd say, which it really would have cost like what, an extra 0.2 cents for Mattel to fix this, would be that this Lightyear sticker that we have right here, it's only on one side. They only gave one sticker, so that side's blank. I'm not really looking at that side from the position this is in, but I feel like if you set up a diorama of all the cars places, this is part of it, you could absolutely have stuff behind over here, and then it's pretty obvious. So that's just nitpicky, but I really wish that they did give a second sticker. Like, you could even see from the way it's designed, like, it's identical on both sides. Like, there's the place for sticker on both sides. So I don't know why they didn't give two, but that's a relatively minor issue, just one that would have cost like a fraction of a cent for Mattel to have fixed. I'd say this is definitely an exciting and fun playset for sure. Compared to the Piston Cup Action Speedway, I think this one's actually a bit better, because it is a bit more interesting to see them actually jump onto each other, have the opportunity for collisions, of course, which the Piston Cup Action Speedway, that's in provide. Although the Piston Cup Action Speedway is cool in its own right, like jumping onto the podium. I keep talking about how that's a winning point in that one compared to this one. I'd say if I had to pick between the two, and you assume that they're still about $40. Right now, the Action Speedway is about $7 less than this last time I checked. I'd say I'd probably go for this one, just because the idea of having them jump is pretty neat and not something that the Action Speedway had. The Action Speedway, it's a bit more generic since it's just an oval, whereas this one's a cool track design. You have the jumping, you have collisions, you have the really unique color scheme that they don't typically use. Whereas the main benefit of the Action Speedway, I think, was the ability to jump onto the podium. But I think these would go well together in a set. It would just be obviously a huge set, because they're both like literally 40 inches long. So that would require quite a bit of space to have them both. As well as you have all the other playsets, that's going to be huge. I recorded a shorts video back when I did the Frank playset. That basically took up like a third of the room I'm recording this in. It's a pretty, and what I'm recording is like a huge room. I'm not going to do that again for this one, because it just took up so much space. It took a couple of hours to set up. And then I have to dismantle it all, because I don't have the space to keep that up all the time. So anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know in the comment section below what you think of this playset, if you'll be picking it up, and how you think this compares to the Action Speedway, or any of the other Cars playsets for that matter. And what do you think of the whole GRC concept, bringing back Cars 2 characters for the first time since before Cars 3 came out? So that was over 6 years ago. Actually, at this point, it's been 7 years. Actually, that's crazy. That's crazy. It's been 7 years since Cars 3 came out. But nonetheless, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you soon for another review. Bye now.